Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Human. That is a hard word to say, by the way, Jeff. Human. It just doesn't roll off my tongue every week. I feel like I need to add or take something away.
Well, I think you particularly and rightfully emphasize the H in a way that
Human. Okay.
you really get that
I
H.
nailed the H.
And I want you to know that we, the listener, feel the effort and it's appreciated. Like don't fuck with
That
it. Like you keep saying it the
is so
way that
funny.
it was intended to be said. Yeah.
I'm now going to have to really practice. I'll be in
Yeah.
front of the
No,
mirror
no,
for
don't
hours.
practice.
Okay.
You just leave that baby alone because it's utter verbal perfection.
Well, we are, even with a week off for the holidays, talking about how to be attractive, how to make sure you can facilitate the friendships that you want, the relationships, perhaps even intimate relationships. And you wanted to talk about vulnerability first and then authenticity second. And I went kind of in a right turn into authenticity. So I want to hear what you say first so I don't just completely take us off track. So what I think of initially with the word authenticity in terms of relating to other people is just honesty, be your authentic self. So tell me what your initial thoughts are, then eventually we'll get into some of the craziness that I listen to.
I'm a little bit more interested in your crazy, but I will pontificate for a moment. Authenticity and going back to the quote that we used last time, the eye cannot see itself. And it, I think any conception that I have of authenticity has to be predicated by the eye cannot see itself. And so the Narcissus, right, is infatuated with his own self-image and subsequently falls into the pool of water and drowns because he's so intoxicated by his perception of himself. And for a variety of different reasons that I mostly blame social media on, you want to say, what is it? Boomer, good luck. What's the phrase? Is that boomer phrase?
Yeah, yeah, we won't keep that tracker going this time. Okay,
Okay.
boomer.
Okay, boomer. Um, what I see, what I see in session and out of session is this indulgence in, well, that's just who I am, that's just the way I am. And it's almost become like that's the battle cry of authenticity. Like, well, if I don't care what anybody thinks, if you don't like who I am, well, you can just, whatever, go fuck yourself or what. And it's certainly narcissistic rhetoric, almost sociopathic rhetoric. I mean, the way that people talk, like, well, I don't care if anybody likes me or not. And if I have a client say that to me, it's like, well, that then makes you a sociopath, so you have bigger problems than you thought you had. And so I say all of that to say that again, I think there is a dynamic exchange between vulnerability and authenticity of who who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world? But then that has to be validated by an external experience of how am I affecting the world? And so to be authentic is to be I don't want to sound it's we were talking about this before we started and I'll briefly mention it, but I had another ayahuasca ceremony recently, and it's such an interesting experience because in my personal quests of trying to discover the divine, it has been just catastrophic. I mean, it's just been hopelessly catastrophic. Every every conception of the divine that I have tried to experience relationally or intellectually is just been nonsensical. But the psychedelics, ayahuasca in particular, have opened at least the veil enough to know that, or get the sense there is a divine, and it is beyond description, it is beyond comprehension. And to think that I am somehow connected to that. I don't know how. I mean, I'm not a theist. I think religion is does more harm than good, even though I understand it from an evolutionary perspective, I think. And so that authenticity is I did not create myself. Regardless of I didn't create DNA. I didn't create procreation. I didn't create the sperm and the egg. Something bigger than fucking me created that. Authenticity has to be anchored to something bigger than myself. But I also believe that fundamentally, if we are living an authentic life, it it's contagious in a positive way. It's there is evidence of touching people's lives and it improving their experience. Authenticity adds to, it does not take away. And I find so much of our conversation about authenticity today being more in that tone of, well, that's just the way I am. And so those are like, I understand that that's more philosophical than practical, but I do think there are elements of that that we have to cling to. And if at the end of the day, I'm claiming to live an authentic life and it is not enhancing the life experience of other people, that's not codependence. I'm not talking about people pleasing. I'm not talking about any of that kind of thing. I'm talking about genuinely contributing positively to the people that I come in contact with. I don't know what it ain't authenticity. You're delusional if that's, and you can be delusional, but it's certainly not a useful conception of authenticity.
So you have perfectly explained the Jungian philosophy of authenticity without, and
So
I
if
don't know
everyone's
that.
smart enough to understand Young, I'm always like,
Well, so
okay,
I've been on about a 2 year Carl Jung kick, which is why I said it
nice.
gets a little crazy because there are, first of all, he's dead right, but you have to go deep. Like you can't just listen to one lecture and think you got it. There are some things probably, and I mean, he started his practice probably 100 years ago, so there are some things I would probably categorize a little bit differently, but he would say that inauthenticity is your inability to balance the conscious and the subconscious, to understand your subconscious. So he had these four archetypes that he thought we all had to master and that we're always playing in and out of them all day long. So there's our persona, which is who I pretend to be to the world. And that's not a negative thing. Like
Sure.
when I'm at work, I am my work self. I say things and do things in a way that needs to be done at work. And I'm suppressing some things, I'm vocalizing or exaggerating some things because that's what needs to be done. If I come home from work and I treat my wife in the same way that I work, that's a different persona. It's
Sure.
different parts of me, but that's still me pulling the strings and it's maybe not totally authentic. Well, then there's the shadow, which people love to talk about, Carl Jung. That's the deepest, darkest, shameful. Man, if anybody ever heard these thoughts, they would run away from me. And I have these impulses and these things that I just have to really put to the side. That's the shadow that he talks about trying to reconcile. And then there's the anima and animus, which is the kind of different sex attributes, we always say we have a masculine side, a feminine side, whether you are a male or a female. It's like we have those things, and some people throughout history have just wanted to truly suppress those. Like you got to be a real man, you got to be a real woman, and so if you have any inclinations in either direction that are not conforming to that, then you're supposed to hide that, and that's another part of the subconscious that you can feel shame about and suppress and so forth. And then there's the true self, which encompasses the other three, And if you cannot manage those all three and totally understand them, because he would say if you don't even understand what you're dealing with, you're just going to totally suppress them. That's how you do become sociopathic or psychopathic, or at the very least, just inauthentic. And then people will recognize that. We're talking about being attractive. We hear phrases like, well, you're two-faced, or you're this, or you're that, you act this way in front of that person, that. Again, there are appropriate times that you play different parts of your personality, but when can you, or who can you with, be your truest, deepest, most authentic self? Do you have your closest group of friends, your spouse or your partner, and you can say, that person knows me. Like I can say anything, do anything, and I feel totally reconciled to being my whole self with that person. Because I think the closer we get to that with people, they know it. Like I mean, you've probably had conversations or relationships with people where it's like you went to a different level and you felt closer. Like, wow, they kind of let me in. They told me some shit that they probably don't tell other people. And that's you seeing that Jungian authenticity. It's not just another layer of persona, because we can kind of fake that and say, look, I'm being my genuine self, as you said. So I really got into pulling that out just in anticipation of this chat tonight.
And so, just with your personal journey, how much has his categories helped you in kind of that integration of the authentic self? Is that how you would describe
Yeah.
the process?
So, interestingly, in my business development curriculum, when I work with other business owners and help them create their business model for a sustainable, happy, healthy business, the very first thing we do is talk about business persona. And it's your business persona. How does the world perceive you? How do you want the world to perceive you? So I thought that was interesting because, again, that's not a negative thing. It's just, are you doing it appropriately? And how much true authenticity from the whole self do you allow in your personas that you wear? So that was one thing that was unique, because I will say, probably just through my business development entrepreneurial life, like I've learned that you also just have to really get as close to truly authentic as you can. You can't fake your persona. If you're trying to be something in business and it's totally fake and disjointed from your whole self, again, you're going to be found out and you're going to be miserable even trying. So, that's my first step. And then to the shadow, I think, both of us having wandered in and out of different type of religious affiliations, that's where you try to suppress it, right? Like, oh no, that's a bad thought, or no, you don't talk about that, or you don't do that. So I also, you brought up evolutionary psychology. Like I understand the self-protection that we try to, bring to the table with that. I can't say the animus is, a huge part of me. Like I don't mind my masculine and feminine sides being there. My wife makes fun of me because she, I'm like a gay architect. She will say I'm so, you know, neat and precise, and I'm the one who decorates her house and so forth. So I mean, and I'm the poet, so I'm okay reconciling those. But at that final step, your true authentic self, I don't know if I've even gotten there yet. Like, am I really all in on that? Do I really understand those total depths? Are there still things I don't want to see or don't want to show? I don't know.
Yeah, it's so interesting, the Dunning-Kruger effect. You don't know what you don't know. And it's like, the first time I learned about the Dunning-Kruger effect way back in grad school, it's like, oh, well, that's helpful. I'm really, and it's like, it hasn't helped me at all. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm at the same place where it's like, I am more aware of the lack of progress that I have made. And I don't mean that in any sort of self-defeating sort of way. It's not like, gosh, it's just the awareness of how much there is to be known and how little I know I should not talk. Like I should just, yeah, well, I don't even have the right. I should breathe shallow. I should take as little oxygen away from other living things as possible, and most of the time keep my fucking mouth shut. It just, and it's just like, and one of the things that kind of going back to part of the authentic self, and I'm still very much in the process of this. So, one of the check and balances is the eye cannot see itself. And so I've created mechanisms just kind of in my journey to get feedback to see if my public self and my private self, how congruent they are, and are they congruent in the ways that I want them to be congruent. But the other thing and I'd be interested to get your feedback on this, it's like the more that I feel like the more authentic I have become, which again, a significant part of that is an increasing awareness of how much I don't know. And the sense of awe that has started to create, that I, I start to just be mesmerized and and humbled and inspired simultaneously by increasingly more things. And I don't, the past 2 years, you've been doing a deep dive with Jung, which I'd love to have the cliff notes because I'm just not smart enough to track with him. But what is awe? What is the significance of awe? And how do you create it? Do you find it? Like where is it? Because in my life experience, I would say it has been more elusive than I have wanted it to be. And I was really inspired by a client of mine who just he finds awe in everything. And we'll have a session and he'll be he was his favorite painting is a, a less known Van Gogh. I think the title is The Mailman. I'm not sure. I had never seen it before. I don't know how familiar you are with Van Gogh's work. I still color by numbers, but he went to New York, saw it in a museum. He walked around a corner and there it was. And I mean, as he was telling me this, Joe, he was weeping. And it was like, okay, there's something in that experience of awe that is so authentic. Like he is so authentic in that connection that finding, experiencing, and staying in awe, things that are greater than me, things that both humble and inspire me at the same time, that I am finding to be a component in my quest for authenticity. And that may have nothing to do with what we're talking about. Maybe we should edit that whole part. But
No, I'm
I
gonna
believed
tie
it, man. I was sweating while I was saying it, dude.
here. It's like, how far can I go over
I
here
was like,
before?
I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. I hope, but I was in it. Like that was powerful for
Well,
me.
you use the word authentic at the end, so we'll say that tied it back in.
That pulled it back around.
So what I would say first is kind of going back to your description of the divine and it being elusive. Um, Everybody who doesn't understand pretty complex neuroscience says that because they don't understand it. It is literally the Dunning-Kruger effect. If it's something you don't know, you automatically think it's more complex and more divine, more supernatural than it really is. As soon as you know it, you're like, oh, okay, that's just that. That's just a synapse and a cell and a neuron and a blah, blah, blah. So I would answer your question, is awe something you find and see, or is it something you create? I think it's 100% something you create in your own awareness. And I'll say it like this. Whenever there's a tragedy, like another mass shooting or something, and people are just upset with each other and the whole world's falling apart, class against class, person against person, it's now become very in vogue to say, just go touch grass. Just go touch grass. Put your device down, go touch grass. Well, I would I would question, has anybody ever done that? Like literally go sit in the grass and get down and look at a piece of grass. Look at the bugs and just feel the grass and the dirt, against your skin. Nobody fucking does that now. And not even just that, the painting example, sitting down with a book, sitting down with a poem, sitting down and closing your eyes with the best headphones you could ever put on and just listening to the most intricate composition you could possibly ever hear and do nothing else. That's the only way we can experience any kind of awe, and other people might call that divine. I think it's you just having the narrow focus of being able to let one thing captivate you. It's like I love this quote by Bukowski. Probably, his whole life was worth living just for this one quote. Find something you love and let it kill you. Like that's the essence of a life.
That ended strong. Like it started off, I was kind of like, well, this isn't going to be that impressive, but that ending was like, whoa.
Find something you love enough and let it kill you.
Oh, okay.
So I think that shows in the all-inness of authenticity. If I'm being authentic with you, it's because I trust you to know all of those integrated parts of me, even the shadow, even struggles with the animus. I trust you with it all. And that kind of authenticity is 1,000,000% attractive. I mean, that is where you will always find your best friends and your closest relationships when you can connect at that level and trust each other with that much.
And one of the things that was a struggle for me, especially coming out of, such a staunch evangelical orientation, and fruits of the spirit and the deeds of the flesh and, all of that kind of orientation, was doing a level of shadow work. And so I don't know. I'd be interested to know what your process with that has been. And but even like I was resistant to that, even as we were working with, Jungian archetypes back in grad school. It's like, oh, shadow, that's just, the sinful and whatever condescending justification that the coward within me that knew that there was something dark down in there, and coming to grips with that and you'll correct me if I think it was Aquinas, I don't remember, but uh, one of the great theologians had the quote, "It was dirty, it was filthy, it was rotten, and I loved it."
Huh.
And it was like, oh,
Another good
like,
quote right there.
like, oh shit. Like maybe I do have some work to do on the shadow self. And my work on that was, I don't to the degree that I've effectively done it, which I don't know that I have, but was a little bit of a disappointment. I think it was this darkness that I was terrified of. And then it was just as I started to, okay, what is that within me that I probably don't want to acknowledge that is there, that I don't want to be honest with myself, that, whatever, I don't even have a good example. It, it, and then to like start to, my shadow work was, it was almost like the power of the forbidden fruit. It's like, the forbidden fruit has so much power because it's forbidden. And it's almost like, okay, so there's this part of me that I feel like I need to access, but oh my God, what am I going to find out? And then it was mostly pretty normal stuff, maybe some kinks or some shit like that, but it wasn't like I went on a, 6 month coke run or, that sort of thing. It, and I don't know. I'm kind of curious in your experience how you've kind of tackled that part of the process.
Well, I think you've gone through more than you think just by exiting organized religion.
That's probably a good point. Yeah.
Because remember that deconversion process, because talk about suppression of the subconscious and things you just don't say, you don't do, you don't admit, you just la 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 la, la, and you
Right.
just pretend that's just not of the quote world. And then all of a sudden, the fear of coming out of that and wow, I'm alone. Life is random and I have no guarantees. I can't pray to this being and I'm gonna find my car keys or I'm gonna cure my wife's cancer. Like you get stripped bare down to your subconscious
Yeah.
more than you think, and that's why it's just so painful for people. But I will also say sometimes, and I think you'll be able to elaborate on this more than me, it is the stuff that you just don't even want to deal with. You have pushed experiences down. I'll give you an example. I was at a conference one time and in a small group, and this woman who was pretty far advanced in life. She was older than you and me right now. We were just in this open workshop moment, and she went into this very detailed, stoic description of the time as a child she was gang raped and left to die. And then her father found her and basically dragged her back from the woods to the house, and nobody ever talked about it again. And she said, "This is the first time I've ever told anybody." So, however, that impacted her in myriad ways,
Oh, right.
she has just stuffed that down into her subconscious, and she has never allowed herself to process it with anybody. So I think that's one part of an unintegrated shadow. Um, and now that maybe she had some trust and could even just say those words out loud, I think that is a huge step in that direction.
It's so funny because you're exactly right. My shadow work was leaving the church, but there was like, I didn't even like, I didn't even make that connection until like this moment. I'm like having this massive epiphany right now of like, oh, fuck, that's exactly right. Because I essentially like unzipped my human suit and took it off
Yes.
and walked out into the wild like with a naked soul and like it
Yes.
was yeah and that's yeah huh that's
Have
pretty
you ever read this? It's like Swiss or Norwegian psychiatrist Peter Van Zempf or something. He wrote the essay "The Last Messiah."
I no I don't think I've not even heard of it.
It will not only change your life. I don't think you'll be able to sleep once you start reading it. It
Very
is the starkest, most articulate explanation of the human psyche that I've ever seen in my life. And it is called The Last Messiah. There are sentences that you will read 10 times and just marvel at how he explains everything you've ever felt inside of yourself, and yet you've never been able to explain it like he does.
on it, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I literally pull that out. I have hard copies in a couple different places, and I pull it out and read it from time to time like it's just sacred.
Yeah, that's yeah, that okay, now that we've kind of pointed out the obvious in my own experience, um yeah, then you almost have to say that there is help me I'm building this as I go, but there is a death of sorts
Oh yeah,
as you move to the authentic self.
for
Yeah,
sure.
it is. Yeah, without a doubt.
In this, so I want to go back to you used this current generation, and you talked about how it's narcissistic and very unhelpful. And I want to elaborate there for a second because there was a study, and I'm going to put my own color on this. So hopefully I'm not taking it too far out of frame.
Sure.
But basically, they asked different generations kind of like a Likert scale. To what degree do you identify your core self as connected to a mental health diagnosis? So you have, quote, achieved this health diagnosis, mental health diagnosis, this label. And now, how much do you identify that that is who you are? Like, I am now defined by this mental health diagnosis. The baby boob generation said, what the fuck are you talking about? Like it was zero. I don't even know what you're saying.
Right.
Gen X, our generation, said zero. Like, no, I don't identify with my mental health status as the core of who I am. This current generation, the youngest, 72%, said the most important thing, the most profound thing about them is their mental health diagnoses. And I think here's where you got two sides of that coin. I think they're trying to be authentic and they're trying to say, well, look, like this is the dark part of me and I'm okay letting people know because I'm working on it and I'm trying to improve. But I don't think many of them cross to that side of then truly wanting to work and let the social process assist them. They just want to cocoon themselves in this diagnosis and say, as you mentioned, Jeff, that this is why I can't do anything else. I can't try. I'm not going to change for you. Fuck you. This is just who I am. So deal with it. And that's not what the best parts of social psychology do. The best parts of social psychology, interpersonal neurobiology, is that you and I are always in this dance together as friends, as colleagues, as partners, as parents and children. And we are helping each other become better because we're gauging in real time the impact we're having on other people. In my position, I have a company where I'm the employer, and then I have also started this position where I'm an employee. And we had a really tough day today, like where I had to meet with the executive director and another director, and we had some turmoil and we had to figure it out. And you see people coming to these points of having to kind of purge some feelings and have this really authentic conversation, and then everybody comes together and you almost feel like you want a group hug because everybody kind of got this stuff out and you talked about it and you feel better again. That's I think a good picture of how we can become unharmonious with our authentic selves, and then there's a reckoning. Somebody calls out your shit, now there's conflict and you gotta purge it all. You gotta talk to each other and you gotta strip it down and regain that trust. And that's what you described earlier that younger people perhaps are missing the chance to do because they just want to envelop themselves in these perceived pathologies and then just say that's my excuse for never doing more.
Did you say 72%?
Yeah, 72%. Like
I
zero,
heard everything
zero,
else you said, but I was
72%.
like, that is, that's tragic. Like, that's tragic.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
I would indict two sides. I think it's one, I don't, the book Saving Normal. I don't know if you've read that or not, but Alan France was when I trained. When I trained, we were transitioning from the DSM-3 to the DSM-4, and Alan France was the head of the American Psychiatric Association and essentially the architect of the DSM-4, which in significantly increased the diagnostic criterion. So diagnoses like autism, for example, like were expanded to be more include more. But not only that, more diagnoses. I think we went from 16 to uh, I don't remember the numbers, But then now, we're with the DSM-5, which I think I have like 25 clinical disorders. I mean, it's just like at a minimum. And the Alan Francis wrote the book Saving Normal as an indictment to that. Like, look, we're our intent, which he does prescribe a benevolent intent, that thinking that expanding the criterion would get miserable people help sooner so they could be less miserable. Well, that's the intent of the DSM, sort of. The but no one anticipated this collateral effect of self-diagnosis of, I mean, people come in to my office oftentimes already diagnosed, and it's like, but you don't know what you're talking about. It's like that's not even close. And so it's tragic on both sides that there is that we find ourselves in this ethos of, I mean, if you watch any of these little short video thingies like reels or whatever, I mean, I find that I have 10 new dysfunctions every day. I mean, it's like, and things that I didn't even know were psychological maladies. I mean, it's like, I don't, what I learned about myself today was, I don't know, 4 steps to healing the inner trauma child, or it was like, well, looky there. I guess, like,
Got to start working
look,
on that.
look at all of this stuff on TikTok that a practitioner who's been in the field for over 25 years didn't even know they were a thing. That's that's so fucking amazing. Like,
Well, I'll heal your inner child right here.
please
I,
do.
I have pulled up the Last Messiah.
Ah,
So this goes on for, I don't know, like if you print it out,
oh,
it's 9 or 11 pages. But here's the first line.
okay.
Are you ready?
Bring it.
One night in bygone times, man awoke and saw himself. He saw that he was naked under the cosmos, homeless in his own body. Homeless in his own body, Jeffrey.
Holy
All
shit.
things dissolved before his testing thought. Wonder above wonder, horror above horror unfolded in his mind. The woman too awoke and said it was time to go and slay. And he fetched his bow and arrow, a fruit of the marriage of spirit and hand, and went outside beneath the stars. But as the beasts arrived at the watering holes where he expected them of habit, he felt no more the tiger's bound in his blood, but a great psalm about the brotherhood of suffering between everything alive. That day he did not return with prey, and they found him by the next moon. He was sitting dead by the waterhole. Whatever happened, Jeff Stuckey? A breach in the very unity of life, a biological paradox, an abomination, an absurdity, an exaggeration of disastrous nature. Here's the line: life had overshot its target, blowing itself apart. A species had been armed too heavily. Speaking of intellectually, dude, let me read that again.
The whole thing is like, I'm supposed to digest this, but
That's why I said it'll take you a year to listen to one sentence to understand it. A breach in the very unity of life, a biological paradox, an abomination, an absurdity, an exaggeration of disastrous nature. Life had overshot its target, blowing itself apart. A species had been armed too heavily by spirit made almighty without, but equally a menace to its own well being. Its weapon was like a sword without hilt or plate, a two-edged blade cleaving everything. But he who is to wield it must grasp the blade and turn one edge toward himself.
yeah, right.
That, and seriously, that's the introductory paragraph to this essay.
Jeez. See, I should not talk. I should not say words. I should just walk around picking up trash. That should be my contribution. I mean, I couldn't have, I mean, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to synthesize meaning from that.
Dude, I literally have been for about the last decade. But so everything we're talking about, especially in the shadow and the unconscious versus the conscious, like that is the ultimate expression of self-awareness. I am a menace to myself. My own intellect has overshot its target. For me to have any utility to myself, I have to hold a bare blade where it literally cuts me. Like, and then you figure out, so that first little intro I said, where the man was found by the watering hole dead, and then it's like
Right.
a mystery, what happened? And it goes through the whole rest of the essay, explains why the psychology of man is so difficult to ourselves to even understand.
Okay, who wrote this?
Peter Wessel Zapfe, like Zapfe. But if you just look up The Last Messiah, you'll see it. But anyway, so just going back to our mooring here, like we're trying to describe how we can be attractive to other people. This level of authenticity, just like this psychiatrist describing it, he is basically saying, I have to dig through the deepest parts of my own understanding of myself, literally willing to die if that's what it takes, before anybody else can even have a chance of knowing the authentic me. Like if I can't know myself, how I'm just wearing the mask, the Jungian mask. I'm just putting on another mask just to please somebody, just to hide who I really am. Who fucking wants that? Like we really do crave that deepest kind of trust and connection, and yet we're all still too afraid to take off those final masks and let our true friends, our true partners in all the way.
Yes. I You can't read a quote like that and expect me to have coherent thought. Like
I'll send it to you and you can just kind of.
I'm still kind of swimming in that. I mean, it just that particularly the image of the I'm going to fuck this up because it was just so eloquently written, but like the double-edged sword with one edge facing, it's like, yes, yes. Even though I don't know exactly what that means, that part is exactly right.
That's what you do every day with clients in session, right? I mean, you're not necessarily like eviscerating them, but you're showing them this is gonna hurt. Like we if you want to do some real work, that kind of self-awareness where you are trying to reintegrate all parts of yourself, like you got to dig through some shit that you don't want to dig through.
And as because we're kind of building the plane while we're flying it, I do think we've just kind of stumbled into the kind of authenticity that leads to attractiveness because it it is painful work. It's painful work and not no criticism. Not everybody has the courage to do the work, and that is certainly a person's prerogative. But I do think that the when we had been talking in our last series about, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's like I don't I value competence and resilience more than I value happiness. I'd rather have the certainty that when life gets fucking hard, I have the resources and the resilience to endure whatever it is. And I just value that more. I just, and because to me, that leads to peace, that leads to contentment, lack of emotional excitation. And and I think the work of genuine authenticity and the courage that that takes to endure it, because once you begin, it is much akin to Neo coming out of the Matrix. We, red pilled is thrown around so much right now, and it's like, go watch
Yeah.
the fucking movie.
Yeah, I need to do that again. It was at one time with a couple of my kids, one Christmas vacation, we literally watched the entire trilogy, and yeah, it'll change you.
I remember you won't remember this, but I just closed my practice in Dallas. I just moved back to Evansville and was probably just latently angry and rageful. And I I had taught in the Sunday service a series on boundaries, like what boundaries are in relationship. And so subsequent to that, I was asked to do like a prolonged series on that. And in that, so everybody comes into this, the sanctuary, which was, I don't know what we fucking called it, but whatever. And you remember, I mean, it's a massive room, right? And so everyone's sitting in there, they're chit-chatting, whatever. So I have it go to black, and then it did have that worship center, whatever, had fabulous acoustics, and a massive screen. So it it cuts to black, and so I have everybody just sit in the dark for just a couple of minutes. And then the Matrix comes on where it's like pouring down rain, and Neo is going to meet Morpheus for the first time. And he's like, I'm offering you the red pill, which will simply show you the truth. The blue pill, you will wake up in your bed and you will have no memory of this. He takes the red pill and goes through that whole experience. And then I turn the lights on, and I swear to you, there's like 300 people in there just like looking horrified.
So
And
first of all,
I was so proud of it. And then I'm
yeah.
like, oh fuck, I might have missed the mark with my like I might have done that passage there that night.
So the irony is, of course, I remember that because that was you. You were so good. Like there was an element of drama in theater. One of the things in your public speaking I've told you, and I've probably tried to emulate, but I just can't, is your ability to talk slower, talk softer, and even just put in intentional pauses. And like the quieter you talk, the less you say, the more people listen. That paradox. You're just excellent at that. But what I would want to make sure I put into this chat as a finish, because I think it's probably one of the final things Carl Jung ever said about his theories. Because you have these archetypes, you have the animus, the shadow, the personas, the masks, and you're just like, what am I supposed to do with all of this? Like, if I explore it, I try to integrate it, I face it, I work on it. What do you do? And he said the total goal, the integrated whole self, is never something you solve. It's a constant, balanced unity of opposites. That was his phrase, a unity of opposites. You don't solve it, check it off the list, and you're done. You have to keep facing it. You have to keep these things in a balanced tension, and that's what we just don't like as people. Like, we just don't.
Right.
We want things to be black and white and done and off the list.
Right. We certainly don't want the cognitive dissonance of, say that phrase again because it's so beautiful.
It's a unity of opposites.
Yes, that is just you're exactly right. That is the antithesis of what we want as humans.
Mhm.
We want chocolate or vanilla. We want black or white. We do not want a unity of opposites. And that is I that is so brilliantly articulated.
Yeah. Well,
And
like I said, he's hard to understand, and some of the stuff you can get into, you're like, wow, is he still even sane? But then, when he comes up for air, you see that he really is synthesizing some things that are important, and some of it's just the language of the times that you don't quite get. But
well,
so for
and the patience of it, your
yeah.
conscientiousness like affords you it's like a puzzle that you have to figure out. And I'm picking my nose, sniffing glue, like, fuck this. I don't, that I'll wait for Joe to figure it out and then he can tell me what it means.
Well, this is like, I mean, going back to Dunning-Kruger, this kind of self-awareness is just the first step, and you have to be patient. When you gave that great metaphor of unzipping your human suit and walking into the universe as a naked soul for the first time. I mean, that's what it feels like, but then you realize this is going to take years and it's going to take my entire life, and I hope I get far enough down the road, but there's never an end.
Yeah.
There's just going back to, am I willing to find the awe or not? Am I going to blind myself to the awe and just put on my masks, exhibit my personas, push my shadow to the side, and just play the game? Or am I just going to let myself be stripped bare and enjoy the awe with other people?
And one of because I'm a simpleton, one of the ways that I describe it and just for myself, not just my clients, but I will often ask them, do you go to the grocery store in your underwear? And obviously their answer is no. And would you put clothes on to go to the grocery store? And it's like, well, of course. And it's like, well, is that, are you not being authentic? And, and one of the things that I have discovered in my journey to authenticity is earlier on for me, authenticity was standing out. And what authenticity has become for me is showing up better. Regardless of what I am to, showing up to that particular circumstance the best that I can show up. And sometimes that means keeping my fucking mouth shut. It doesn't always mean, and that's through my journey. I would have said, if you and I had this conversation 30 years ago, and, when I went into every room and fucking talked more than anybody else and never, relinquished the conch, this is just my own authentic self.
Hmm.
And, and I would tell you that that has been the most significant change for me is authenticity when I was at my most naive was attention seeking, and authenticity to me now is showing up to whatever circumstance I am showing up to the best that I possibly can. And that that does transist, right? That's not a static state. There are moments where I show up differently because this moment requires that from me. And I I would say by volume, you know, number of people who sought me out then versus the number of people who seek me out now, my attractiveness to whatever degree that's a valid measure has increased. I don't, I am fortunate enough now that I don't have to go look for it. I,
So
but my commitment to showing up the best that I possibly can, in this moment, in this conversation that you and I are having, the session that I was late getting out of when we were trying to record, whatever those things are, that is what authenticity has come to mean to me.
And that sounds like a great application of David Brooks' last book, which I found so fascinating. I watched a dozen interviews with him talking about it, and I bought the book for several people as gifts. It's How to Know a Person. David Brooks, How to Know a Person. And it talks, he has like five principles, especially around conversation on how you converse with people. And yeah, I love your not relinquishing the conch statement. Like that's so visual, because that's what it's all about. It's like, do you even care what that other person is saying in this conversation? Are you truly present? And what you described is just such a great part of social maturity.
Yeah, and I do think at the end of the day, everything that we have discussed, particularly, in the last several minutes of this podcast, but the dynamic exchange between vulnerability and authenticity and the the check and balance in the system of, am I showing up the way that I think that I am showing up? The humility to ask for that feedback, like all of those things are the really hard work that leads to genuine authenticity. And I will tell you, and this is one part gratuitous, but one part sincere. A case study in authenticity. I use Kurt Signetti.
You're gonna have to explain that one because like about three people listening to this will know what you're talking about.
He is just frankly odd. He is just an odd individual. You may, I would say, probably put him mildly off-putting, and yet what he has done to the Indiana University football program. But the other thing, in an era of, you know, the open portal and NIL money and players being, and not a criticism, if I were an 18-year-old kid, I'd be doing the same fucking thing. Where can I go get the most money? The level of commitment that he cultivates from his staff to his players. We did not have anyone substantial. Those the we now, um, and again, this is just a gratuitous plug for my Indiana Hoosiers who do play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship Saturday night. So
That is
we will.
literally the game of the year right there.
They're
Game of the
we're
decade.
no place to hide, right? We're every
One and two.
question will be answered
Yeah.
Saturday night. But just you watch him on the sideline. I mean, he just constantly, he looks like the Grinch, and yet cultivates that level of performance and commitment, and is genuinely like he is becoming the subject of like authentic like what is this guy's secret sauce? And it's his level of authenticity. I mean, it's a interesting thing.
Well, for my prompt, I'm going to leave that there
All right.
because that is a
It
can
was
of worms
again,
that
it
would
was mostly gratuitous.
take us 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So mine is going to be somewhat easy because I would just say if anybody has any interest in truly trying to uncover who you are and how to integrate those parts that you might find disjointed, it would be just to go to YouTube and search for Carl Jung videos, and you'll hear all kinds of you just philosophy and psychology channels where people talk about him and his methods and all that, and you'll find some good stuff. You just will. The other would be, of course, download a copy of The Last Messiah, Peter Wessel Zapffe, and just read a sentence or a paragraph every once in a while. You can't read the whole thing in one sitting.
That
You
is
you just
definitely.
can't. But you have to just take a thought and let that thing pierce your soul, and it will give you challenges in just thought and understanding that you did not even know were there to be had. So those are my prompts.
And I guess what I would say to that is, if you're practicing or pursuing authenticity in, again, what I would deem any sort of meaningful way, that and this is the world according to Jeff, which is the world that I live in, is that the ultimate litmus test is, am I adding to, or am I taking from?
Mm.
And and true work towards authenticity is painful. If you're not experiencing pain and fear, you're not on the path to authenticity.
Yeah.
It's something else, and you can stay on that path. Um, but it is the road less traveled.
And next week, we will be wrapping up this series on how to become your most attractive self. So, as always, this one worried me a little bit, Jeff. I did not know if we were going to nail this, but I think this may be kind of the most cohesive discussion we've had yet. We may actually have a podcast.
Felt like something. I mean, if the listeners are in doubt right now, they're wrong. It was
Yeah,
definitely something.
it was worthy of a Nobel Prize or Pulitzer of some sort.
If nothing else, it was a total blast, as it always is.
Okay, man. Well, I appreciate that, and we will see all you guys next time in Human with that strong H.